Thank you. CCC, Tony Williams.
Present.
Very good, thank you. That brings us down to item number 3, and that's our safety minutes. Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm actually doing this from the training room because I couldn't get into the link. So the April Safety Minute is on how your choices at home can affect safety on the job. There are many choices we make at home that can have major effects at work. Whether it is safety related or lifestyle choices, many of these choices have repercussions that carry over from home into the workplace. It is important to realize how closely connected our personal and professional lives are. For example, you go out with your friends to a late Sunday night football game. You then choose to go out with your friends afterwards until 1 a.m., knowing you must be up at 4 a.m. to go to work. You make it into work on time, but you are still feeling the effects of staying out late and you are very fatigued. You are now putting everyone and the company at risk for an injury or some type of loss. Even choices that are perceived as positive can have a negative effect at work. For example, you choose to take a second job at a convenience store for extra money during the daytime when you are off from your night job. A few weeks into this routine, you realize how hard it is to get enough rest before going into your night shift job as a forklift operator. One night at work, you start to fall asleep and strike a support beam to a large shelving system. Half of the shelves collapse, dropping expensive computer components to the floor below. The company now faces a loss of over $40,000. Sure, nobody got hurt this time, but how will this affect everyone else at the work site and the company on a larger scale? While we do have the freedom to choose whatever we want to do outside of work, it is very important to realize how these decisions affect the safety of ourselves, coworkers, and the company as a whole. Thank you and welcome to the April board meeting.
Sam, I feel like that was targeting me. I'm just teasing. I appreciate the message and I 100% agree. Thank you, Sam. Before we go any further with the agenda, I just wanted to acknowledge our new chair member, Tony Williams from CCC. Tony, it's really great to have you. Would you like to say anything?
Great, thank you. I'm really excited to be a part of this board. I'm looking forward to getting to know more about the public transit system here in Flagstaff. And just for other members of the board, please know that I'm new to Flagstaff. I've been here about 18 months and I moved here from Everett, Washington, which is about 30 miles north of Seattle. And I'm really grateful to be a part of the Coconino Community College system and a member of this community and the county. And the last 18 months with COVID, it's been challenging to integrate myself into the community, but serving on this board is going to help me establish a sense of place and purpose. So I look forward to working with you all moving forward. Thanks.
Great. Thank you and welcome to town and thank you for jumping into our community and jumping onto this board. We appreciate it. You got some big shoes to fill.
That's what I've heard.
But it's good to have you. Thank you for stepping up. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to just verbalize them. Don't hesitate.
Thank you.
Great. So that brings us down to our approval of minutes, item number 4 on our agenda, and that was part of our packet. Those are pages 5 through 12. I will entertain a motion to approve or deny those minutes, or if anyone has any comments or feedback, please feel free to jump in. Councilmember Sweet.
Yes, so I will second that motion.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I will make a motion to approve minutes from March's meeting.
I'll second that.
Great, we have a motion by Director Sweet and a second by Director Vasquez to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Thank you. That takes us down to item number 5, which is the consideration or to consider the Metro Plan and Mountain Line Coordinated Public Transit Human Service Transportation Plan. Estella.
Mr. Chairman, This is under consent, and so we don't have a presentation prepared, although Estella could answer any questions. Otherwise, it can be approved in one motion,
Gotcha, thank you.
of course.
Directors, are there any comments or questions about this consent item? And if not, I will take a motion. And the motion we're looking for is that staff recommends the board to adopt the Metro Plan and Mountain Line Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I will make a motion to adopt the Metro Plan and Mountain Line Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan.
Very good. Is there a second?
I second.
Great. We have a motion by Director Sweet and a second by Director Colai. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that brings us down to discussion action items 6, which is consider the vice chair ascension and election of a vice chair for the board of directors. Rhonda, is there a presentation, or I can facilitate the conversation?
You're muted, Rhonda. You're still muted, unfortunately.
Okay, sorry about that. Different things in different places. So I do have one slide that just shows the current members. So let me get that up there. Let's see. There. That was my only slide for this presentation. So if you want to take it away for the election, that'd be great.
Right. So my understanding, and Heather can correct me if I'm wrong, but is that there are basically positions that are open till the end of June, and that we can, as a board, decide that rather than just filling those positions till the end of June and then revisiting this in a couple months, we can go ahead and set those positions till for June of next year. So basically a year plus a couple months, which personally I think is a good idea, just so we don't have to have this conversation twice. But from what I'm hearing and what I read in the packet, which we all have, it sounds like the vice chair, which was me, typically ascends to the chair, and then we need to fill the vice chair position. I told Heather this morning, I have no ego in this, and I'm happy if there is someone else on the board that would want to be chair, we can have that conversation. But I am happy to serve as chair for the next year plus. So board, I'm looking to you all for your thoughts, both on the chair position, if anyone wants to not potentially take on that role, I'm happy to help, consider it. But really what we're looking to do is fill the vice chair's position. Are there any comments or questions about that?
Yeah, I have a question. So what does the board policy say about this, the merging the two things as opposed to having two separate conversations? Does that violate policy?
And by merging, are you talking about fulfilling the rest of this term plus
Yes,
electing?
and then in 2 months' time, do it again.
Heather?
Yeah.
Chairman, this is Scott Holcomb. It really doesn't address, the policy doesn't address that. But because it is so close, that is I believe is a vote within the power of the board to determine that they want that to extend, beyond just a couple of months. The normal would be that the vice chair would automatically move up into chairman's position. You can vote on the vice chair. And if the board of directors believes it's prudent, I believe it's within your authority to extend that because it's such a short period of time.
Okay.
Director Coley, does that answer your question?
Yes, indeed it does. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments about the chair position and myself ascending to that position or concerns about that? Or does anyone have any nominations or would like to throw their name in the hat for the vice chair position? I promise I'm not going to leave like Steve left us to our future vice chair.
Sorry about that.
I think I support obviously the natural progression of the interim chair to be chair, which would be Adam, and then we can vote, pick a vice chair.
Okay. Should we vote on the chair position and then shift to the vice chair, Heather?
That'd be
Or
great.
Scott? Okay.
Well,
let's do that.
Mr. Chairman, since it's natural progression for the vice chair to become the chair, I don't think there's any vote unless somebody wants to change that.
Okay.
You are anointed unless someone wants to change that.
Okay, so if anyone wants to change that, speak up now or forever hold your peace. That sounds good. I see a lot of heads nodding. Okay, so that's I think we have consensus there. And then for the vice chair, my understanding is it can't be Councilmember Sweet because we both represent the city as council members. So it would have to be one of the other members, and it couldn't also be another elected, correct? Is that correct? So it could be Director Vasquez either. So that brings us down to Mr. Williams or Mr. Okolai.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, if I can clarify, the county can serve as the vice chair.
Oh, I apologize. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
If I'm, Mr. Chair, or if I may clarify, the purpose of doing that is so that one organization didn't have both executive roles. So as long as it's not another city flag staff, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Of the three chair members, who would like to step up into the vice chair position? Any volunteers? Or any nominations?
As the newest member of the group, I defer to my colleagues. They would prefer to do it first, but if not, I'd be willing to do it if need be.
And Mr. Okolai is that the longest serving member. Mr. Okolai, I know you had expressed concerns last time we had this conversation. Do you still have those same concerns?
No.
Okay. Okay. So if I were to nominate you as our vice chair, you wouldn't be opposed to that?
No.
Well, I would like to nominate Director Okolai as our vice chair.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Any other comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Congratulations, Director Okolai, to our vice chair. And I'm leaving the agency tomorrow, so
No, you wouldn't do that.
great. Looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
And thank you for your service. Okay, I think that brings us down to our next discussion item, which is consider the microtransit pilot in the Huntington and Industrial Corridor.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. My name is Estella Hollander, and I'm the mobility planner for Mountain Line. And I'm here to provide an update on the microtransit pilot, as well as seek board approval to open the public comment period. So next slide, please, Rhonda. So first, a little bit of background. Mountain Line received a grant from CTAA, or the Community Transportation Association of America, This is one-time grant funding to pay for the operations as well as the capital expenses of a mobility on-demand pilot, which I'll go into more details in a few slides of what mobility on-demand means. One thing just to note, this photo on here is pre-COVID. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And so we are focusing on the Huntington and Industrial Corridor, which there's a map on the right side here. And this area has been an identified gap in service for Mountain Line for many years. It is home to many human service agencies, as well as nonprofits, clinics. It includes the shelter, Hajoni and the Guidance Center, to name a few. And it's really an area that lacks mobility options. And so we are really wanting to bring some additional access to serve this area. Next slide, please. And so mobility on demand, this is an umbrella term for transportation services that can be hailed in real time, meaning sometimes through an app or a call-in option. It's also flexible, meaning it doesn't have to follow a fixed route or fixed bus stops, and it utilizes emerging technologies and private sector partnerships. And so Mountain Line is focusing on microtransit, which we will be using our paratransit vehicles, which are pictured on the right here, and almost turning them into Ubers and Lyfts. That's kind of one way to think about it. But this service will provide service in this Huntington Industrial Corridor. And it will be open to the general public as well. Next slide, please. And so Mountain Line, part of the planning effort, has developed a microtransit stakeholder group. And this includes a variety of agencies located in the service or in the corridor, as well as other stakeholders. It includes members of the public as well, such as older adults and people with disabilities. And a large focus of this planning effort is on inclusive planning, meaning bringing together stakeholders, older adults, people with disabilities, other community members to really provide input as well as make decisions throughout the planning and implementation process. So really, again, making sure that we are including various points of views during this planning effort. Next slide, please. So in addition to the microtransit stakeholder group, we've also conducted some public outreach. And one method was surveys. We had 2 different surveys going on, and one geared towards agency staff. So for them to fill it out on behalf of their clients, thinking of questions like, what are your current transportation challenges to access this corridor? How are you currently accessing this area? Do you have a smartphone, internet access, things like that, just trying to get an idea of, one, what are some of the issues in this area? And then, putting forth some solutions for this mobility on demand pilot. And then the second survey was the public. Again, similar questions, trying to understand some potential riders and, again, how are they accessing this area? What are some challenges that we need to work through during the planning process? The second type of public outreach was, we did conduct some outreach events. So we had 3 events. One was at the shelter, second was at Hajoni, and then the third was at the food kitchen in Sunnyside. Again, making it safe during COVID, and we held the events either outside or at least made sure we had doors and windows open and we're socially distanced. But bringing feedback, trying to get feedback to people who are in this corridor, again, trying to just get a pulse on the area. Again, what are some challenges that we need to work through during the planning process? Also engage some community organizations such as the Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living, Northern Arizona, Practicing Transitions Group, and the Continuum of Care as well. Next slide, please. And so from this information from both the stakeholder group as well as the outreach, this group has developed the proposed service area, which the yellow rectangle in the middle, that is the corridor that, again, we're trying to bring additional access to. And so essentially someone could get picked up and dropped off anywhere within that corridor. But again, to bring better access to this area, there's these blue hubs, which are some nearby bus stops. And so these are pickup and drop off points. So someone, for example, could get picked up at the Walmart on the east side and then brought to this corridor. So it could go to the shelter, for example. And so we wanted to make sure that we're not, we wanted to reduce duplication. So not trying to, extend the area too large, so where it's competing with the fixed route, and wanting to make sure that we're again enhancing access to this area. And so the planning phase started in October and will go through the July, and planning on launching this pilot in August, and it'll run for 9 months or until grant funding is spent. Next slide, please. And so part of this planning process is also a Title VI process, which is an outreach process to consider equity impacts for disadvantaged populations, and it's based on a variety of policies. And so since this is a pilot program, it's not going to be a permanent service yet. It's Title VI is technically not required, but staff still thought it was important to conduct this outreach process to seek additional input from the public. So the formal comment period pending board approval will be April 21 through June 16th. And staff will return in June with comments received and seek a formal approval of the pilot program. And that is the end of my presentation. So happy to take comments or questions.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Directors, comments, questions?
Yes, so when you say it's an Uber-like, service, so an individual just calls it up in an app and he goes there just to pick that one person.
So, thank you for the question. This will be a shared ride service, but essentially you're correct. Someone could either use an app. We will have a call-in option as well, since we understand not everyone will have smartphones in this area. But if there are similar people with origins and destinations, so starting in a similar direction and going to their final destination, it will be a shared ride service, but it could be a single ride if there's no other requests.
Okay.
So can you put that map back up? Other comments, directors? I'll ask.
Yeah, so is this current service is just for the area in yellow on the map, correct?
So the yellow area is where you can get picked up and dropped off at any point, but the blue circles are almost like hubs, so you could get picked up and then dropped off in the yellow area, or then get picked up in the yellow area or dropped off in a blue circle. And one thing to note, which I didn't mention, is this area is still being evaluated. We'll be getting a vendor on board to provide the software. And so we do want kind of their expert opinion, since they've done, the vendor would have done, multiple pilots. So just kind of verifying. So it could change slightly, but this is essentially what both the stakeholder group and kind of based on the feedback have developed.
And how do we get folks from this corridor that are involved? How do we get them registered? Like, what's the process? Who should we send them to if we get that question?
Sorry, for how to use the service, or?
Yes, so like, I live in that corridor, I want to use this service. What do they just call in a number? Do they gotta register? Like, how do they access this service?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So there will be an app, but as well as a call-in option. So someone, if they do have a smartphone and with data, could download the app. Again, similar if you've used Uber and Lyft, can type in where you want to go, and then you'll get picked up from one of the vehicles. Or yeah, if you don't have access, there will be a call-in option as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'm wondering, thank you, Director Vasquez. My question is, thinking about the food center, it looks like there is that blue circle pretty close to the food center. Is there a way that the transit could make a stop at the food center?
Thank you for the question. This was one area that we kind of went back and forth with the group. And so we'll definitely, I think, again, have the vendor reevaluate, because I think convenience is a key factor, and the more hubs we add, the more travel time could increase. So, we want to try and keep wait times anywhere from, 10 to 20 minutes. It is about a 2-minute walk. I think on this map, it looks a bit further away, but kind of doing a bit more of a deep dive, it's about a 2-minute walk. So we felt that having it that was close enough. But I think it's something we can definitely reevaluate with the vendor. There's a few other areas in Sunnyside that we'd like to take a closer look.
Maybe talk to some of the staff at the food center. I've talked to some of them who have given people rides. And I agree with you, though. I think that might be close enough. That would be good. Okay, directors, any other questions?
Yeah, so if the service already has people and going to a location, to a destination, and then somebody calls it that happens to be along the path, does it stop and pick them up, and continue?
It would. And I think we'll have to be monitoring, how long people are traveling, because we don't want someone to have to be going all around the area for a long period of time. So that's something once we're starting, we'll have to be monitoring. And it seems like the algorithm is the key part with this software, and you can make all sorts of tweaks to the algorithm of, when people do get picked up, et cetera. But essentially, if it is on the way, it is a shared ride service, so someone could get picked up.
And for this particular pilot, approximately how long would it wait? Does somebody wait, to get to their location?
Mm-hmm. The goal would be around 10 to 20 minutes. We don't want, again, convenience is really a key goal. And so we don't want to make it much longer. So that will be something that we'll be having to monitor as well, and making sure that wait times aren't exceeding much higher.
And would it work like Uber, where you can then see where the bus is or where the transit is and how long it takes to get to you?
Correct. Yes, that is part of the software or part of the app that we asked for. So people will know when their ride is coming, can hopefully see the vehicle. So that will be a part of it.
Great, thank you.
That's great. If we move forward with the public comment period, will this come back before the board at some point?
Correct. Thank you for the question. It will be coming back in June. So after the comment period has closed, and we'll come back with if we did get any sort of comments, or and see if we do need to make any changes based on the comment period, and come back for formal approval.
So that's good to know, directors. This will be coming back to us after the public comment period. Directors Williams or Sweet, any comments or questions before we entertain a motion?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
Not for me either. I think this is pretty exciting. Happy to see it going forward. The next step.
I'll echo that, Director Sweet. I agree. This is very exciting, and thank you, Mountain Line leadership and staff for bringing this pilot forward and getting it this far. I think this is going to be a very good service to the community and much appreciated. So with that, staff is looking for a approval of the review, the proposed micro transit pilot in the Huntington Industrial Corridor, and to open up the public comment period from April 21st to June 16th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We have a motion by Vice Chair. Is there a second?
I second.
Great. Thank you, Director Sweet. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Thank you very much. That motion carries. Thank you, Estella. That brings us down to item 8, which is consider delegation of authority to the CEO and general manager to execute federal grants.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board, Estella Hollander again. And I'm here to ask the board to consider delegation of authority to the CEO and general manager to execute federal grants. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And so Mountain Line's IGA directs staff to seek federal funding to reduce costs borne by the City of Flagstaff's transit tax. Typically, these federal funding opportunities are available for capital projects, and staff have identified 4 priority capital projects with the potential to leverage these federal funds. These projects are being singled out as some were not included in the FY21 budget, which is a requirement for the delegation of authority. And the opportunity to apply for these grant funds will occur before the FY22 budget is approved by the board. And so the 4 priority capital projects, the first one is the electric charging infrastructure. And this will be to provide slow chargers for our transition to electric buses. The second is a commercial driver's license or CDL test course. And this would be in partnership with Mountain Line and NAU to be able to construct a CDL test course for training. The third is a maintenance package. And so this is to design and renovate the maintenance facility that's currently at our headquarters. Mountain Line has outgrown this facility. And so this is definitely a need for our organization. And the fourth one is operation support vehicles. So this includes like snow removal, as well as trucks for our facility department for cleaning the bus stops, things like that. Really just, vehicles that are needed to support our operations. Next slide, please. And so the funding opportunities that are upcoming, the first is from the Arizona Department of Transportation, which is their 5307, 5339. And this is a competitive capital application and is typically funded at an 80-20 split. The next one, which is coming up, is the Federal Transit Administration, their 5339, which is also a capital application. However, this is open. This is nationwide, so can be more competitive compared to the ADOT grant, and is also typically funded at the 80-20 split. In addition to the upcoming grant opportunities, there's also congressionally directed spending, which this is, or earmarks they're also called, and this is something that the Biden administration has reinstated, and this is outside of the competitive grant process. And Mountain Line has submitted projects to Congress members. And we also have been working very close with Nexus Consulting to strategize the best projects under this congressionally directed spending, as well as the federal grants process. Next slide, please. And so for the competitive grant opportunities, there is a required local match component. And so Mountain Line does have adequate transit tax capacity for the local match. However, we always try and seek partnership opportunities to either split the local match or see, if a partner would be able to provide the local match. And so the first partnership opportunity is for the electric charging infrastructure. We are working with APS to see about kind of contributing some or all of the local match, as well as with the CDL test course. So partnering with NAU on the opportunity to split the local match for that project. Next slide, please. I think that's the end. Awesome. That is the end of my presentation. I am happy to take any comments or questions from the board.
Great, and thank you for that presentation. Just to remind the board that staff recommends the board of directors to authorize staff to submit federal funding requests for projects listed below and delegate authority to the CEO and general manager to execute contract of award. Any comments or questions, directors? And if there aren't any, if there's a motion to approve the recommendations, we can go with that.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Sweet and a second by Director Vasquez. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. That motion carries. Thank you. Great. That brings us down to item number 9, which is consider the Downtown Connection Center Council update. Deputy General Manager Morley, take it away.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. I'm excited to present an update on the Downtown Connection Center. We talked last month about the upcoming council meeting, and I'm happy to report that we did hear clear support from the majority of council members to move forward despite some of the trade-offs in the expansion of the transit center. So I want to talk a little bit about next steps today. If we could do next slide, Rhonda. Oh, maybe the slides didn't save. I put some pictures in here last night, but I don't see them in there. So I can generally talk through the project. Most of you have seen it anyways. We have the expansion of the transit center building over on Milton Avenue, followed by the middle of the property occupied by the bus platforms. And then the debate was what to do with the rest of the property, right? Should we have civic space there or parking there? And we heard from council that night that really they wanted to see a focus on parking. Subsequent to that, I think the conversation changed a little bit, and we had many discussions with the city manager about how to move forward with a project that was more holistic and didn't necessarily have to pit parking versus civic space. And we're really happy with the agreement that we've come to with the city manager on that item. So it's in your board report, but we did agree that concept planning for a parking garage would be shown on the designs that Mountain Line provides. And so where the surface level parking was currently shown, we'll now show that as a parking garage to be constructed by the city of Flagstaff. It's not part of Mountain Line's roles and responsibilities to do design or construction of that, but the city would like us to show that so that the community understands that there is a future project there to address parking needs. And so we're happy to do that and show that on plan sets. We do want to be very transparent with the community that any future obligations for a parking garage are not the responsibility of Mountain Line, but are the responsibility of the city. So we'll be clear on concepts to designate that as City of Flagstaff. What we will do to contribute towards the loss of parking as an agency is we've agreed that we can pay for the surface parking spaces that we will be removing. So if the transit center covers up 50 parking spaces, we can pay the city for those 50 parking spaces. That is an eligible expense of the grant. And we've agreed to do that at the cost of surface parking, since that is what's being displaced. So not at the rate of a parking garage, but at the rate of surface parking. And so that works really well for us. The other thing that we are allowed to do very directly through the grant is provide civic space opportunities. FTA, or Federal Transit Administration, sees that as an opportunity to generate ridership. And so they allow grants to do that. And so we agreed with the city that we will design and construct civic space. We can use the grant money to do that. And then ultimately, we are going to turn that over to City Parks and Rec to manage, because Mountain Line doesn't want to be in the business of managing park space, so that there's a division of the city to do that. And so we're really happy with the way this partnership's turning out, where we can move forward and the city can deliver parking in the future, and we can build civic space. There are some timing challenges that still exist with the Rio de Flag project. We know we can move forward with the building right now. We're working with the Army Corps to try to speed up the timeline in which we can finish the bus bays, and city staff are very helpful with that. And then the timing of the civic space is also a question mark, but the city is trying to work with Army Corps to advance the opportunity for civic space and not use that as a construction staging area. So some of the timing is definitely still a question mark, but we are full speed ahead on design. We hope to have the CUP in hand this fall. We did agree that while a conditional use permit, a CUP, typically only goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we know that this is a big community project. And so we did agree that we'll take that CUP process all the way to City Council for approval, so that they have the opportunity to look at the project and weigh in as well. So those are our next steps. Because we're able to move forward now with clear direction, we believe we can have the CUP this fall and actually be breaking ground next summer, which is really exciting for us. With that, you'll start to see things like the demolition of the city's warehouse that's currently on the property. We'll have some temporary spaces for operators up, but we're very excited to be moving forward quite quickly. And I apologize that I did not save my slides.
That is all good. Thank you for that update. And council had a very lively conversation about this before, during, and after the meeting. We've been talking about this, and I'm very grateful for Mountain Lions leadership and to you, Kate and Heather, for your work with the city and the community and figuring out how to best move forward with this plan. There's definitely a number of moving pieces, and I appreciate how you said that the Rio de Flag was a small issue or a small consideration. It's complicated, but I think we're doing our best, and I think we have a good plan. So I'm very grateful to the efforts of staff and leadership. Directors, any comments or questions? I know we're not looking for any kind of motions here or direction, but just a general update. Going once, going
Thank
twice.
you for a good presentation. It was very clear and concise. That's why you have no questions. Good job.
Thank you, Director Vasquez. Yeah, very exciting. I'm glad to see this moving forward as well. There were a couple bumps as expected, but I think we're working through them and we have a good plan in place. And the partnership with the city makes sense for me in terms of the parking obligation and ownership. Any other comments before we move on or questions? And to Director Williams, this is a big topic for us, the DCC. This is going to be our downtown connection center, and it's located where the buses are currently being housed as like a downtown connection center, if you're familiar with that area. And so this will be a conversation that will be continuing to come back to us.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Moving on. So item number 10, Casper Intersection Plan and Transit Signal Priority, TSP.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, members of the board. My name is Ann Dunno. I'm the Capital Project Manager, and myself and my colleague Estella Hollander, a mobility planner, are going to provide you an update on the Caspar intersection and transit signal priority. We are not seeking any action from the board, just providing an update. A little bit of background on this project. I know there's some newer board members. Back in 2015, Mountain Line actually conducted an alternative analysis for a new roadway connection out in front of our existing Caspar facility here. We call it our Caspar campus. It stores our buses and basically our fleet, and it's our headquarters here. The goal of the project is to connect the buses to the main road out at Route 66 and Highway 89. So this will reduce deadhead, those wasted miles, if you will, and also help get us to the downtown connection center more quickly in a safe and efficient manner. Some of you are probably aware of some of the intersection turns in this area with Fanning, and so this gets us right out to the main road. So the project's goals started out with that back in 2015. So we actually received grant funding to do an intersection analysis, and the city and Metro Plan actually were stakeholders in that planning process back in 2015, which developed a 15% plan for the intersection. Then subsequently, we were actually awarded design and construction funding. In the last year, we have proceeded to go through the design process, and we actually have the project out on the street, advertised for construction as we speak. You know, for the goals of the city, this intersection, next slide, please, actually, Rhonda, that would be helpful. Yep, there's the area. So again, this is the intersection area we're talking about. Gets the buses out to the main road, also helps with some multimodal connectivity. Next slide, Rhonda, that would be helpful. Thank you. So with the development of this intersection, this also helps with the city's more long-range transportation goals for the area for connectivity, and the project is in the Metro Plan's regional transportation plan as well. You can see a little bit of the design here. It's designed for a 2030 traffic horizon. So you have, you know, multiple lanes. We're also increasing the lane, turn lanes on Highway 89. In order for this intersection to work with a potential future extension of Linda Vista, we are dropping the Caspar road profile so we can make the grade to tie on to 89. We are also, you know, connecting some sidewalks. There'll be a bike lane, and then we're supporting the future foots connections in the area as well. And we are also moving one more little detail. We're moving the bus stop kind of out in front of our facility a little bit closer, so it'll improve the ADA access there. And with that, I think I want to give, let me see. Stella, did you want to weigh in on TSP before I mention kind of the next steps with the city IGA process?
If you want to continue with Casper intersection, then I think the TSP slides are afterwards.
Okay. A little bit relating to finishing out and getting this to construction. We are working on an IGA with the city right now. The project is potentially anticipated to exceed the grant budget for construction. So the city is drafting an IGA and partnering with Mountain Line, and that will go before City Council here, hopefully in the next month. And that should help us close the gap, if you will. And we anticipate getting construction hopefully started in June with completion by next June. So, thank you. Stella, do you want to talk about TSP?
Awesome. Thank you, Anne. And next slide, please, Rhonda. So Transit Signal Priority, or TSP, will be installed at the US 89 and West Route 66 intersection. Essentially, TSP is a tool that provides preference to transit at signalized intersections. So it can reduce delay by either extending the green light or reducing the red light when a bus is coming through the intersection. And really, one of the main goals of TSP is to improve travel time reliability. TSP acts differently to preemption, which we currently are using in Flagstaff when a train comes, where it can kind of disrupt the signals. And so preemption can disrupt the signal cycle, including the pedestrian signal cycle, but TSP is different and actually allows the pedestrian signal cycle to continue, which is a great benefit. Next slide, please. And so with TSP, we have some system goals that have been defined for Mountain Line. And first is the ease of future expansion and scalability. So whatever type of TSP equipment and hardware that we would buy for the Casper intersection, we want to make sure that we can use it at other intersections if TSP were to expand. However, we don't have anything planned currently. Next is automated TSP operation. And this is basically so that TSP will turn on when a bus is coming through, and so that we don't have to have our operators, press a button or something like that to activate it. The third goal is to improve travel time reliability. And then the last goal is to develop a solution that is beneficial to our stakeholders, such as the city of Flagstaff, as well as ADOT at their specific intersections. And so Mountain Line, we are working with AECOM to develop a plan for TSP implementation. And we have decided on conditional compared to non-conditional, meaning it will only be activated based on certain criteria. So for example, when the bus is running, more than 5 minutes late, that is when TSP will be activated. So not every time a bus is going through the intersection. AECOM is also helping us define the TSP system architecture, which this is how the TSP system functions and how the calls are received. And we have decided on distributed system, which can be more resilient and stable compared to a centralized system, which has kind of a central component where all the calls are received. Next slide, please. And so for next steps, we are continuing coordination with City of Flagstaff. We have been working with their traffic staff to really define roles and responsibilities between both agencies as well as a TSP vendor, which we'll need to get on board. And so we will be issuing a request for proposals for this TSP vendor, which will provide the hardware and the software, as well as we will be working through an IGA between the city and Mountain Line. Again, just kind of further cementing those roles and responsibilities. And this IGA will be the foundation for future TSP expansion, again, if we do expand to other areas in Flagstaff. And that is the end of my presentation. I think Ann and I are welcoming any questions or comments.
Thank you both for the presentation. Quick question. So is this the first transit signal priority system in the city?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I should have pointed that out. This is the first time TSP, Mountain Line has not installed TSP anywhere yet.
And are there other communities around the state that integrate TSP?
They do. This is definitely becoming more of a trend throughout various cities to have TSP at certain intersections. Mm-hmm.
Great. Directors, questions, comments? All right. Very good. Well, thank you for the update and looking forward to this moving forward and being brought forward to the city. With the IGA, with the city, is there a financial ask of the city? Like you said, to close the gap?
Councilman Shimoni, thank you for the question. Currently, the draft IGA is for the city to commit to cover the user fees, which would essentially be permit fees for the inspection materials, inspection, future chip sealing. It's roughly estimated at $220,000. But when the bids come in, we will be able to evaluate kind of where all that sits. But that's the estimate, at least right now.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions before we move on? All right, not seeing any. Let's go ahead and move down to item number 11, which is review organizational structure and compensation plan.
So good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Directors. This is the third in our series of education items that we started back in February, and I will add this is the final education session planned for the board. If there's ever additional questions, we're happy to review policies, procedures, or structure as necessary, but this is the final planned kind of education item. So this is a review of our organizational structure and compensation plan. We thought it was timely as we're also going to be considering today our workforce strategies and the related budget for 2022. Next slide, please. So the organizational structure, we have included in the orientation manuals. We will be providing you with an updated structure after the 2022 budget is adopted. So I'm presenting based on what we have today. Currently, the general manager does report to the board of directors, and the transit advisory committee, which is made up of our city managers, citizen representatives, and other staff from our partner agencies, does act as advisor to the CEO and general manager, as well as the department directors for Mountain Line. So we tend to take items through the Transit Advisory Committee for review and advice before we bring them to the board of directors. The team of reports that report directly to me, the GM team, are our department leads, and you can see those on the screen there. We're going to walk through each of those departments. Next slide. We'll start with the deputy general manager. This position was added last February of 2020 as a support system when I was named interim CEO and general manager. And when the board approved the contract, we kept the position in place. And that deputy general manager does lead our planning department. And I will add also acts as our Title VI officer, which is a very important position under our federal rules and guidelines. There are 6 support staff, and I will point out 2 are part-time interns, and we do have 1 current vacant position. On here it shows as long-range planner, but we are trying to determine what that final job will look like and the most effective way to use that vacancy. Next slide, please. The management service director, this was previously the administrative director or my role within the agency. Lori Batiste sits in this role and is our civil rights officer as well. She does have a 1 HR manager and the IT manager. We did absorb the business manager. So Lori's previous role was business manager. Through a redefinition, we absorbed that position. So we took 2 management level positions and created 1. Lori does have 11 support positions, and 1 of these is part-time. Next slide, please. Our safety manager, Sam Short, you regularly see him presenting our safety minutes. Key component to our focus on safety and meeting the federal guidelines for making safety a priority in our agency. This position did previously report to the operations director. We did a little reorganization back in January to move that to the GM to highlight the importance of safety in our agency. Sam does handle liability controls and risk assessments, as well as oversee our safety programs. The marketing and communications manager leads our communications department. We just added a new community outreach specialist. It is currently vacant and actually hasn't even been advertised. We did this through a redefinition, again, of our customer service agent, looking to try and add a more balanced approach to our outreach on social media and in the community by participating in events. Next slide. The last department is our operations department, led by our operations director. It is our largest division because it does contain our 53 transit operators. We did take our facilities manager position, Wade Forrest, if you've been with us for a while. When he left, we left his position vacant while we considered what did we need as we moved into the future. And we created a maintenance division under operations, led by a maintenance manager position that is currently being recruited. And this aligns both our fleet maintenance and our facilities maintenance under one maintenance manager, adding additional support for our fleet division. The maintenance division does include 2 coordinators and 10 support positions. And operations as a whole is supported by 1 manager, 2 coordinators, 10 supervisors, which are our road or field supervisors, and 53 support positions. Next slide. Before I go into our compensation structure, I'll just pause briefly to see if there were any questions or comments on the org structure itself.
Directors, any comments or questions?
All right.
Going.
We'll keep moving. Our compensation plan was adopted in 2000 and I think we adopted it in 2020. It was to go into effect on July 1st of 2020. It is based on a philosophy of being fair across our positions and divisions, as well as market sensitive. We have 2 types of ranges: the non-exempt, which includes step table positions and exempt, and our exempt positions are on open ranges. We also have non-exempt positions on open ranges, and I'll talk a little bit about what those 2 things are. We do have a 4-step strategy, which includes defining our labor market. We update that market study every 3 to 5 years, depending on some challenges we may have in recruitment. We use past experience credits to identify the starting wage for employees. We consider those initial placements, and then we work really hard to identify, when possible, internal promotions. And the pay for those internal promotions is defined as qualifications as well as years of service. Next slide, please. The types of pay adjustments that we allow in our compensation plan include those market adjustments when they're identified in our studies. Cost of living, which is up to 2% when adopted or directed by the board of directors. Performance-based annual performance plan. This includes 3 different measurements: needs improvement, meets standards, and exceeds standards. Staff not on step tables have a range of 2 to 4% in pay available to them for these performance-based reviews. And then we have step adjustments. So staff that are on step adjustments are our CDL positions and our family inside of our operations division. So it includes the positions that hired individuals may move through during their career with us. And it really includes recognition of years of service as the most determining factor for those step increases. We do complete reviews for those positions as well, and someone not meeting the standards may have their step increase withheld for a defined period of time. Next slide, please. So this goes a little bit more into the details of our operations step table. As indicated, it is 10 steps. So that really means from the time an employee starts until they finish, they have 10 years to reach the maximum wage available to them. So a very defined process that those staff members can count on. We did decide in the adoption of this plan to include 2 underfill options. We do hire staff without a CDL and without transit experience. They do start below our minimum, and then we move them as they move through those things. So for example, someone without a CDL or transit experience will start 9% below our minimum, but they will move to the 5% upon completion of the CDL. Someone hired with a CDL but no transit, after they have 6 months of transit experience, will move to the minimum. So those individuals do move at more than their annual anniversaries just based on those milestones. Next slide, please. Other compensation or other pay adjustments include promotion and transfers. We define these as not, they cannot exceed a 4% change unless we go all the way back and calculate the experience for a new position. Demotions are also defined as at least a 4% change in wage, and redefinitions cannot exceed a 4% change. We also offer incentive programs, including a quarterly bonus of 25 cents per hour with a graduated increase. I will just say, while that's in our compensation plan, it is currently frozen as we are reviewing it to define what qualifies for that bonus. We do also offer a stay-on bonus, which allows an employee to receive up to $1,500 over an 18-month period to encourage new employees to stay with us for at least those first 18 months and become invested. And then we have a referral program that allows employees to refer friends, neighbors, family members to our transit bus operator job specifically. And that's just part of our recruitment efforts. Next slide, please. And that was everything that I had on the compensation plan as well. And I'll again see if you have any questions. I just want to add, we are going to talk more about the compensation plan and the budget for it in the next agenda item.
Okay, great. And so, yeah, if there's any questions, board members, please do speak up now. But I do think we should just continue into that next agenda item and get through the information. Any questions now, directors? Okay.
The incentive, could you clarify that? What's that incentive program?
Sure. So we have 2 incentive programs right now. One of them is a quarterly incentive. It is frozen, but it's defined as 25 cents per hour for hours actually worked. And then depending on how long you've been here, you may have a 5-cent increase per year. So if you're in year 1, the quarterly bonus pays 25 cents per hour for hours worked in a quarter for achieving 0 accidents, just as one example. If you've been here 2 years, you're actually going to get 30 cents per hour as your quarterly bonus. But again, it's tied to the actual hours worked in each of those measurement periods. What's missing is what are we defining as the bonus pieces? We had things that worked several years ago, and we're working now to redefine that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other comments or questions? Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is a continuation on workforce budget and strategy.
Terrific. So the next slide, Rhonda. So we are going to look at what are we proposing in 2022, fiscal year 2022, for our workforce budget and our strategies to recruit and retain staff. We talked a lot about the operations step tables, and I want to point out that step tables are 10% above market for operations, and that is strictly driven by the fact that those positions are so hard to recruit and retain. So that is one strategy of our competitive wages. We do have a retirement benefit. We are required to participate in the defined ASRS retirement plan, and we also offer a deferred compensation plan. Sorry, there's a typo there, it threw me off. We have health, dental, and vision insurance that employees are required to participate in. The health plan does include 3 different policies that they could choose from. 2 of those are at no cost to the employee for their own health coverage. The third, there is a participation fee for the employees only benefit. And then we share independent cost. So whatever it costs for an employee to enroll their family, their spouse, their children, we share in that additional cost, but the employee does contribute roughly 45% of that cost. Life insurance, we provide a $40,000 life insurance policy for all staff members at no cost. Employees do have the option of additional coverage for spouse or family, and it's 100% out-of-pocket cost to the employee. And then, as mentioned earlier, we have the stay-on bonus. We have the annual pay increases, both as defined in our compensation plan, and we have the incentive programs. And I'm going to talk a little more to Director Okoli's point. We have other incentive programs that we use here that are outside of that compensation plan, just meant to recognize employees that go above and beyond. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Next slide, please. Some of our continuing with our benefit programs, we have a vacation leave program, and we do allow them one time per year to sell up to 40 hours of their vacation time as a payout of what's on the books. And vacation leave is paid out 100% on an employee's departure from Mountain Line. So we offer them the opportunity to sell that back one time per year. Sick leave includes up to 8 hours of leave for wellness activities. So while an employee can use sick leave to attend a doctor's visit for wellness, we also allow them to take a walk or participate in a NAPEP wellness activity using sick leave under the wellness leave hours. We have anniversary leave, which recognizes employees for how long they've been here, and they get a segment of leave available to them within each of those fiscal years. Unlike vacation and sick, anniversary leave does not carry over. It is made available on their anniversary, and it resets to a maximum number of hours depending on years of service upon the next anniversary. So it doesn't carry over and it doesn't increase. We also offer reward time, which is a manager discretion used way to recognize staff. So, hey, you did a great job this week, go home early on Friday. Or, hey, I'm going to relieve you from your route and you get to go home. And we do not charge that to any of their leave, but actually pay them reward time. We use recognition cards, also at manager discretion, everything from a cup of coffee to a pizza and a Coke at Fratelli's. These are thank you notes and a way to continue motivating and recognizing efforts that people put forward. And lastly, we have an anniversary program, which really provides a gift to employees reaching major milestones of 5, 10, 15, 20, et cetera, years of service. They actually receive a catalog and get to choose a gift from that catalog. And the value of the gift is based upon about $100 for every 5 years of service. Next screen or next slide. Other strategies that we have and are in our fiscal year 2022 budget is continuation of education and training opportunities. We provide EAP, our employee assistance program. We have 2 different providers that employees can choose from, and they are allowed up to 6 sessions per year at our cost. We have the referral program, which I talked about in the prior discussion. We do offer CDL assistance for new hires. We provide the training, we help with permit and physical cost. Our employees in our fleet and facilities departments receive tool allowances, which include the boots that are required and safety glasses if they choose to pursue it. And then, of course, we have a very active wellness program that includes activities, a committee that engages on those. And then we have purchased several pieces of wellness equipment like a treadmill and make those available for employees to use. Next slide, please. What is included outside of that in the fiscal year 2022 workforce strategies and budget? We are not proposing a COLA. So remember, we could ask for up to 2%. We are not proposing a COLA this year. The quarterly bonus program is frozen, but we are going to spend this year to really look at that program and evaluate its importance in the coming years. We are not proposing to add any benefits. We are not proposing to change any leave accrual or types of leave, and we do not intend to change any of our leave time payout rules. Next slide, please. We are proposing to include our annual pay increase. So this is based on the compensation plan that was adopted as part of the study in the fall of 2019. It was implemented on July 1st of 2020 for non-exempt staff. Exempt staff members have received adjustments quarterly while we wait to see what the impact of the COVID recession was. For 2022, we are proposing that we fully keep that plan implemented. So those on a step plan, those positions on a step plan will receive a 4.5% change on their anniversary, and those on an open range could receive between 2 and 4%. Average is typically 3% change on their anniversary. Next slide, please. We have several benefit changes that employees will be faced with. We are absorbing a 1.5% increase to ASRS. Of course, the employees will also see a 1.5% because we match that participation with them. Our health plan, we are increasing our contribution for the employees and their dependents about 3% per plan. There was no increase to dental, vision, or life insurance this year. Next slide, please. The budget does propose that we add 3 positions. One is a bus detailer. Those are the individuals cleaning and sanitizing our vehicles on a regular basis. We've had 4 limited appointments for the last 12 months. We're proposing to keep 1 on full-time as we go into 2022. The addition of a facilities technician as we continue to develop our bus stop program and our amenities and add to our facilities. These positions support the maintenance as well as the cleaning that takes place at these locations, and we're finding that that extra position is essential. We have a half-time IT technician, a help desk level position that we're proposing to go full-time in fiscal year 2022. And then we are finding that we need additional help in our HR division. There's currently 2 employees for our 100 employees and all of the HR related work that needs to be done. So we are seeking the addition of a half-time clerk that can just help us manage some of the paperwork that's coming out of those HR activities and the new rules and regulations that keep cropping up related to employment. Next slide, please. And now we'll talk about some numbers. So our workforce budget for indirect management costs, so those are positions like mine and Kate's and Lori's, those positions that spread across all of our divisions and our people, we are proposing a 2% increase. For the positions that are direct operational costs, these are our drivers, our mechanics, our maintenance supervisors, it is a 7% increase. Next slide. So the overall change is 5.9%. That's the overall wage and benefit change to our budget from fiscal year 2021 to 2022. The pay plan is 4.5% of that change, and that's really driven by the significant number of staff that are on our step tables that have that regular and reoccurring 4.5% increase. Next slide. These are general line items that support our workforce strategies. I will go over some that are significant changes. It is an overall increase of 7%, which is really $9,000. So from 2021 to 2022 for these categories, it is a $9,000 change or 7%. The line items with significant changes, if you'll click again, Rhonda. Trophies and prizes, these are the things that we use to reward employees and respect or recognize those exceptional behaviors and actions. This actually is double what it was in 2020. It is in line with what we have been doing in 2021. Recruitment, if we click again, this is an increase of 50%. A lot of this is related to what it cost us to place those advertisements in the newspaper and in other publications to make sure we're reaching as many people as possible when we recruit. Click again. Our tool allowance is increasing by 50%. And this is really because we've expanded it to include the shoes as well as the safety goggles for both our fleet and facilities department. We've had the fleet tool allowance in place for a while. We are adding it to our facilities workers. There's really not that much difference between their driving demand for those safety items like shoe and safety goggles and tools. Click again. The safety committee is a new line item. The safety committee was formed as part of the Mountain Line Safety Plan that the board adopted. That is directed by the Federal Transit Administration. They call it a Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. We call it the Mountain Line Safety Plan. But one of the measures in our commitment to safety is to form a committee that reviews potential safety concerns, obstacles, suggestions, and addresses them quickly. And part of our commitment to that is to provide budget and resources to resolve those safety concerns. So this is just a beginning to look at that. In the past, in 2020, that $3,600 is about what we spent that year in the safety committee. It was not budgeted in 2021, and we've had very low activity there because we've really been focused on cleaning and sanitizing as our safety measures. But next year, I expect we'll do a lot more of our safety walkthroughs and more proactive behaviors that hopefully address safety concerns before we have injuries or create risk. And the last line item there, the travel and training, this is really flat with what we've had in our prior budget. So this is flat with the 2020 budget. In 2021, we moved 50% of this into contingency. We have not needed to touch that contingency with all of the travel restrictions in place. Staff are still doing training in virtual environments. We anticipate in 2022 that we will again have the opportunity to introduce travel as well as completing some items virtually, but really focusing on updating training for our staff members. So with that, that's everything that I have on the workforce strategies and budget, but I'd be happy to go back over any information or answer questions.
Thank you so much. So directors, there is no formal recommendation here.
Correct.
If there are any comments or questions or direction that the board does want to provide, we can. Are there comments, questions, concerns? What do you
I had a
think?
question.
Go ahead.
I'm going to leave my video off. My screen keeps freezing. For the CDL, how many of the applicants have their CDL license, and how many are we, like, what's the percentage that we're having to train? And is it hard to find folks applying for that portion of Mountain Line?
Thank you, Director Sweet, for the question. I don't have the exact numbers in my head. I know Jim Wagner is on the phone and he may want to add to or correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say about 25% of the individuals we hire come to us with the CDL. Generally, it's large equipment and not bus experience. And yes, this position is extremely hard to fill. We face significant challenges in filling the position. That's why we've added the underfill. That's why we really have pursued hiring without a CDL and without experience. We're building our workforce. We participate in several conversations in the community with the city, the county, FUSD, and NAU to talk about the challenges we all have faced with finding people to fill our CDL positions. So it is challenging. We introduced the stay on bonus as part of that. The referral program was also introduced as part of that. The CDL driver is a key position to what we do. So I hope I've answered your question and not rattled on too long. And I know Jim, if I've made mistakes, will jump in and correct me.
Georgia Sweet, did that answer your question?
Thank you for the information. And yes. Oh.
Did
I
you
don't
have
know
any
if you can hear me.
follow-up?
I'm having horrible internet. Thank you for answering.
Of course.
Other questions? A couple questions I have, not necessarily too specific to the, it's within the same umbrella. A couple just, I guess, more thoughts than questions. You know, I liked seeing the interns on that list, on that graphic. I just wonder where there might be room for increased partnership and internships with NAU and CCC. And I know that's a large undertaking, but I just wonder if just planting a seed, to build upon that internship, because I know often interns can lead to employees and
Yes.
are worth the investment. And then I just wanted to mention to our HR team that whatever we can do to continue to strive for our workforce to best reflect the community we serve is something I'm pushing for at the city continuously, and seems to be a challenge. But I think all agencies are looking at this today and reflecting on this, and anything we can do to continue to improve that our workforce reflects our community, I think is appreciated by myself. Heather, I like the supervisor model that was outlined in the packet as a good form of communication, or a better form of communication, in that, addressing that issue that employees were bringing up. And I think that the pay structure and the ability to move through the pay structure is good. I think a lot of times it comes down to funding and putting the money behind it, but it sounds like we're on the right track. So I appreciate that. Those were just my comments. Directors, anything else you'd like to add? All right, thank you very much. That brings us down to our progress reports. Heather, are we good on this topic, or did you want anything else specifically?
If I may, the progress reports are all in your packet. Anytime there's a progress report that you'd like to pull to have put on the agenda, please let us know. We're happy to do that. For the most part, these are just us providing you with information, and so we don't plan presentations around them, but we can always put them on a future agenda. So if ever there's a topic there that you'd like more information on, please let us know. I just wanted to add a couple of things, if I may, under the current events from the general manager. One, I know the board had an executive session, and we have talked before about a passenger that has continued to issue lawsuits and complaints against our agency and several of our staff. A hearing was held yesterday. The two open claims against myself and Sam Short were combined and then dismissed. As part of that, we did not put that on executive session for today, but if you would like us to do that in the future to strategize next steps with that individual, we would be happy to do so. I also want to recognize that we have just started a conversation with the City of Flagstaff about pursuing a new grant opportunity. It was announced, the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity, the RAISE grant program. And we reached out to the city manager. We are talking about potentially pursuing that funding for the Milton Road Railroad Bridge replacement that is necessary to support both the Rio de Flag project and our Downtown Connection Center. So very excited to start on those conversations. Follow up to the presentation Estella made earlier about delegation of authority. We did hear from Congressman Stanton that he is requesting that Mountain Line's top priority, our electric bus infrastructure of $1.65 million, be included in the surface authorization bill as directed spending. I hope I have that language correctly. So we're pretty excited. We don't know for sure that it will actually make it all the way through, but his support is very much appreciated. And then lastly, and I will be sure and take any comments or questions you have on those items. I wanted to share with you and draw your attention to, in my progress report, the several anniversaries that are noted for our staff members. We as an agency are working very hard on recognition and creating a culture of recognition and gratitude. So I have included several anniversaries, everything from 1 year to major milestones. Bernice Tooley was here when I started in 2001. She just passed her 22nd anniversary, a very big milestone for us. She serves in our operations division as a dispatcher. Just to call out one, Jackie Lenners, I think, had 9 years. I'm searching for that while we talk. And then I want to also recognize we have an employee retiring at the end of this month, Paul Reese, 7 years of service as a transit bus operator, and he will be retiring, and we will be recognizing him next week with his peers to thank him for his many years of good service. So just want to call your attention to those very special anniversaries on the last page of my current events. And hopefully in future, when we have in-person meetings, we can invite those individuals so that you have the faces and you have the opportunity to also celebrate their successes with our agency.
That's great. Thank you so much, Heather. Any comments or questions about the progress reports? Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, so that moves us down to our executive session portion of our agenda. And so without further ado, do I have a motion to go into executive session, or do we need to do that before we go into executive session?
Yes, please.
Okay, is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion from Vice Chair Colai and Director Sweet. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Okay, you will be receiving an invitation shortly.
Mr. Chairman, just if I may, Sam Kaufman has joined us. He's going to be presenting at the executive session. I want to make sure he gets invited into the room.
Yes.
Thank you.
Morning, Sam.
Good morning.
Heather, we haven't been transferred over, correct?
Now, I think IT is still forming to move everyone. Sorry about that. It does take us a few minutes.
Take your time.
There it is.
All right, and we're back. Let's give everybody just another minute.
It looks like the clerk has not rejoined, so if we could wait one moment for her to rejoin us, that would be great.
Heather, we do have this last item, right, in regards to scheduling?
It's mostly just an open review. There's no action required on it, I don't believe, so.
Okay.
I think we could, it looks like Rhonda is not quite back yet and she can advise, but I think we can really review that quickly and move to adjournment.
Okay, so that brings us down to the last item on our agenda, which is just reviewing our next meeting, which is scheduled for Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. It will be a Zoom meeting. And it starts at 9 a.m. or is it starting at 9 a.m.?
Yes, we are starting early because normally this would be a 4-hour meeting with a lunch break. So we condensed it to a 3-hour meeting starting at 9 a.m. to allow us to really do more strategic conversations about the 5-year plan. That's going to be the bulk of the agenda.
It's a joint meeting with the TAC.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Any comments or scheduling concerns for any of the directors? Thumbs up. Okay. That sounds good. Okay. Any other discussion on that, Heather, or are we good?
We're good there. Thank you, sir.
Directors, staff, leadership, thank you so much for a good, productive meeting. That was a long meeting, but we made it through it. Covered a lot of ground. Enjoy your month and see you in about a month. And yeah, be well. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
And welcome,
Thank you.
Tony.
Thank you. Have a good month.